Lesson 6. Beyond the Limits. Against all odds. Towering over the East River, the Brooklyn Bridge is one of New York City's famous landmarks. Nowadays, many people take it for granted, but back in the 1800s, it was something people only dreamt of. The bridge's construction cost more than $320 million in today's money, and the lives of over 24 people. In particular, the family in charge of the project paid a high price to create the impressive bridge we all know and love today. This is the story of how the Roeblings built the Brooklyn Bridge. In the 1860s, the populations of Manhattan and Brooklyn were rapidly increasing, and so was the number of the commuters between them. Thousands of people took boats and ferries across the East River every day, but these forms of transport were unstable and frequently stopped by bad weather. Many New Yorkers wanted to have a bridge directly connecting Manhattan and Brooklyn because it would make their commute quicker and safer. Unfortunately, because of the East River's great width and rough tides, it would be difficult to build anything on it. It was also a very busy river at that time, with hundreds of ships constantly sailing on it. Any bridge over the river would need to be a very high suspension bridge. Considering the limited technology in those days, building such a bridge seemed impossible. That is, people thought it was impossible until John Roebling, an expert at building suspension bridges, accepted the challenge. John proposed the use of steel cables instead of iron ones that would be 6 times stronger than needed to support the bridge. In addition, he planned to build 2 large stone towers to hold up the bridge's road and allow people to walk across it. If his ideas worked, the final result would be the longest, strongest suspension bridge ever built. John's ambition inspired people, so construction began in 1869. However, he was involved in a ferry accident later that year and died of an infection not long after. It looked like his ambitious plan was destined to fail shortly after it had been launched. Luckily, John's role as chief engineer was succeeded by his son, Washington Roebling. Because he had built bridges with his father and studied bridge construction in Europe, he believed in John's dream. At that time, the foundations for the bridge's 2 towers were being built in the East River, which was extremely difficult and dangerous work. Workers had to stay at the bottom of the river in a waterproof box with little light and constant danger. Many died or were permanently injured by a serious disease called the bends, including Washington Roebling. In 1872, he developed this disease and was unable to move easily or visit the construction sites throughout the rest of the project. Other people would have quit at that point, but not Washington. He continued to supervise the bridge building for years by watching it through a telescope from his bedroom. However, there were still many things he could not do despite all his efforts. Once again, the project seemed likely to be abandoned. To everyone's amazement, yet another Roebling stepped in to save the bridge. This time it was Washington's wife, Emily Warren Roebling. She believed in what her family had started, and she was determined to see it through. Before marriage, she knew almost nothing about engineering. As her husband's health failed, though, Emily began passing his instructions to the assistant engineers and bringing back their construction reports. In the process, she naturally picked up a lot of information about bridge building. With his assistance, she also studied higher mathematics and engineering so hard that she became an expert in them without ever going to college. By the time the bridge was finished in 1883, Emily was carrying out many of the chief engineer's duties, which was unprecedented for a woman in those days. Many people praised her contributions to the project, and she became the first person to cross the bridge. It was the moment she, Washington, John, and everyone else who built the bridge had worked so hard for. To this day, the Brooklyn Bridge stands as evidence of the Roebling family's persistence. These amazing people made incredible sacrifices and overcame all obstacles to complete a project that seemed impossible to others. Not only did they prove their doubters wrong, but they also achieved an accomplishment that inspired us to do the impossible.